Okay, let's begin. I am Lanice Antoine Shelley, and I'll be your host through constructive, healing-based conversations designed to empower adoptees and the adoption curious. Through the lens of experts and lived experiences, we focus on alchemizing our stories into maximum social impact. These are the voices who could not speak when they were young. Well, it's been so long, and when we first met, it was before you wrote the book, before I participated in the book. And now I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing and how you feel about it and what's happened with you since the launch of this book, which is extraordinary, by the way. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And thanks for being a part of it. I really appreciated our time together and our conversation and your participation, and just truly honored to have your perspectives in here.
I was honored to be a participant, so thank you for that. I remember just bawling in that interview, which was it was a testament to your openness and how disarming your personality is and how easy it is to talk to you. So thank you for creating that safe space for me to just tell the truth.
Yeah, thanks for trusting me. I think that you give me goosebumps when you say that, because I didn't take that lightly, for sure. That was probably the hardest part of writing the book, was holding you and the other adoptees in my heart. And it's like you trusted me. We had this one-on-one conversation, and I wanted to do you right. I wanted to represent these stories with such care. Thanks. You gave me goosebumps hearing you say that. And I felt your trust, and I really appreciated that. Yeah, you and the others, there's a lot to say. We have a lot that needs to be listened to and heard. And that was the other piece of it, was how do you tell it all distilled from hours and hours of conversation? And how do you get all that into something that's readable? Something that people can be receptive to, which I think you all did beautifully. And this is the first book that was written by an adoptive parent, an adoptee, and a birth parent. Is that correct? Yeah. First time, which is surprising.
It is.
We're like, we've never seen this done, and we would keep checking. No, it's never been done. Why? But it's hard to co-write a book in general. Co-writing is hard, and 3 people is hard, and then you get these 3 perspectives of a pretty intense system, the adoption system, and the aches that go with it. And then you're like, of course it makes sense that this hasn't been done before. But it also is like, why hasn't it? It doesn't feel like it should be that groundbreaking.
I know it doesn't, but it is. And that's what's so exciting about it. And I loved how you launched into the adoptive parent chapter, which can get really sticky for adoptees reading this book. But you all acknowledge the fact that adoptee voices historically have been underrepresented, and you launched the chapter with that. And I appreciated reading that going into it, because you're just like, okay, here we go. How's this going to unfold? So where are you now in the marketing scheme of it? I know that you had a bunch of panels and those sort of events. Where are you now in it?
We're on just writing it now. With a book, typically the marketing begins like 3 to 6 months ahead of time. And so that's the heavy push, is that up until about 6 months post publication was the real heavy marketing push. So we're on the downslope of that, which is nice. I think people start to get tired if you're constantly marketing. So now it's just the book's going to do what the book's going to do. We've got a lot of speaking things going on. We're keynoting at a conference later this summer. We've got a really exciting opportunity doing some training for some judges in the state of New York. So it's like stuff like that it's less marketing and now in teaching or training mode. And I'm really excited about some of these, particularly that one. It's not like I just want to say it's not like a glamorous thing, but it's it feels like it's an opportunity to make really good change. Speaking to judges who are in the court system today and what they need to know about adoption from all three of us, from our perspectives, and we're pulling in someone else on that as well. So it's, yeah, it just feels like it's less marketing and now more teaching mode, which is really fun. And just enjoying I think a couple times a week we hear from someone who's really appreciated the perspectives. We've been hearing from a lot of agencies. They're using it as the basis of their training, which sounds really fantastic. It's been a place of peace, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just feels like it's been a nice, peaceful place right now.
Oh, that's great that you found your stride. And
Yeah.
now you're just like going with the current. Because
yeah.
Before, when we first met, you were in the throes of it. So I love hearing this from you. When I read the chapter that I was in, because I do a little cameo and my mother does a little cameo, reading both of those chapters was really interesting for me because I felt that there was an incongruency between her perception of what happened and mine. Not too much, but I know that it's common between adoptive parents and adoptees that two experiences are happening at the same time. And one believes that the other one is seeing the same thing that they are. When in interacting with other adoptees who've read this book, who were in this book, do you find that to be true with other people?
I will say it's fascinating because you are the only mother and adopted child who are in the book. We don't have any others that are connected to each other in our interviewees. So it's fascinating to hear you say that. And on the other hand, it's not super shocking because I know, I'll just back to my memoir. When I was studying the art of memoir, you just hear time and time again how memory is so specific and our experiences are so specific. And I know my sister read my memoir. I wanted her to feel comfortable with it before I went out with it. And she had totally different perspectives on things than I had.
Yeah.
And she wasn't adopted. So of course she's going to have a different perspective, but all kinds of things. We had a different lens. So even putting adoption aside, we just had a different lens and experience. So it's interesting. And that's the point of the book too, is why there are so many voices that we interviewed, altogether 50 people interviewed for the book, and heavier on adoptees, of course, for obvious reasons. Our voices haven't been heard as much, but listening to all the different voices to see, so people can make their own interpretations and listen to each other, learn what it's like to listen, even if you disagree. So there's that. I also just want to say just a fun story about that is, I don't know if you know it's a young adult book called The Truth. Gosh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it. I was going to tell you a totally different title. It just went off the top of my mouth. Jennifer Diane Ghoston's memoir. I wasn't going to talk about that, but I just have her title in my head. Everything Sad is Untrue. He's a young adult author. A very good book that's fictionalized, but memoir. Anyway, and his older sister also has written a memoir, but hers is full memoir for adults. And when you read the two, it's the same childhood, but totally different perspectives. And I loved that I had a chance to read both of their books and really study them because it was totally different. So anyway, all that being said, Lenise, you and your mom are the only ones who this was the case for our book. So it's interesting to hear you say that. And I think also books are put a timestamp on where we're at. So I don't know where your mom's at now when she was interviewed, and it's now been what, 2 or 3 summers since I interviewed you, maybe 2 or 3.
I know it's been
about
2.5 years, 3 years or so. And you're right, many things have changed within myself and within my mother, and our relationship has definitely evolved. Gabor Mate, are you familiar with Gabor Mate's work? I love him.
Yes.
He speaks to the sibling experience where no two siblings have had the same experience of childhood, even if they were brought up in the same home. And he says because the parents are in different seasons of their lives when they have the first child, as opposed to the second and third. And
Yeah.
so they're going to treat these children just inherently differently because of the season that they're in their life. And just the circumstances as a whole have shifted enough that no sibling is going to have the same experience. And that's so true for my sister and myself, because she and I, if you talk to my sister, it's a completely different story from my sister. And that's fair and true and valid. And I'm hearing a lot of adoptees talk about their sibling relationships and how they have vastly different relationship with their adoptive parents and with their adoption story. And so it's harkening back to your memoir of you and your sister having very different experiences. Did your sister read this book, and did she understand your experience a little bit better?
Yeah, she read, I don't know if my sister's read Adoption Unfiltered, but she did read my memoir, Searching for Mom, and definitely understood my experience better. So we came to a place where we could really respect one another's perspectives. And I think what was also interesting was that it did open up for my sister and I. I had a culture where we never talked about adoption. I looked close enough that we could fake it and pretend, and one could just pretend I wasn't adopted, which was really a gaslighting experience. But then, okay, the memoir is here, and now my sister and I can talk openly about it. And so that really did help to open things up quite a bit for my sister and I, absolutely. But yeah, it's just interesting. There's a lot to learn from people who have different perspectives too. And sometimes I learn from her. Sometimes I think my adoptee lens can taint things. I can see rejection when maybe it's not rejection. Maybe and so sometimes it's helpful to get that perspective and be like, okay, I don't have to see rejection everywhere. This might be just a really common sense explanation.
Yeah, I love that you brought up rejection, because that's something that I've had to reckon with myself of, am I projecting in this moment? And I just finished the book Addicted to Drama. I don't know if you've ever read that book, and I'm sure
No, but
it's so good. I think every adoptee should read this book. Every person on this planet, to some degree, is addicted to drama because we're conditioned to be. If you look at our news, if you look at the popular movies and TV shows that we all consume, it's all dramatic. It's all kind of violence and primal and all of those things. So, to be fair, it's not all of our fault, but the piece in which is our fault, we can have accountability for and find ways to shift this perspective of projecting that rejection wound or that unsafe wound onto things when it doesn't necessarily exist.
okay, you sold me on the book. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's helped me so much the past few weeks that I've read it. I'm just like, okay, Lenise, do you have to react in this way to this person?
Yeah.
Are they really coming for you, or is it just that wound is open, that you feel vulnerable and you feel like you're on your own in situations where you may not be on your own?
Really good point. Yeah. And I think that I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that's such a common adoptee experience, isn't it? Just feeling like everything's just us against the world and we are the
Yeah.
soul fighter. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that I am constantly keeping tabs of, and has gotten me into a little trouble here and there, but good thing I know how to clean things up when I do mess up, when I do step in it, because it happens way too less frequently than it used to, but it definitely happens. So in this space and time where you're on the other end of writing this book, you mentioned the two other perspectives that helped create this extraordinary piece. How did you find each other, and what drew you to this collaboration?
I started a relationship with Lori first. And really what happened is she came to my book launch in Denver. My Denver book launch, Lori was there, and she came up and introduced herself to me, and it was lovely. We thought to pose for a picture, and And that was it. And then we ended up just like you and I have this online relationship where you get a friendship. And I had written for her I did some guest blogging, and I saw she was getting some heat online. She had a lot of just some anger directed her way in one of the forums, and things get heated in this adoption space. And at the end of the day, she's a person. Like, I realize she's in a role that a lot of us have a lot of justified upset for, but also the way it was directed at her was pretty inhumane and dehumanizing. So I just sent her a note, and we ended up talking on the phone. Are you okay? Do you want to chat? And we did. And we just had one of those calls where she was licking her wounds for a little while, but not really. We ended up just solving. We were like, why is it so hard to talk across the aisles? Why can't we all work together? Because at the end of the day, Lori is someone who's been out advocating for decades now and trying to do right and educate and help other, like, she's who you want your adoptive parents listening to. She's someone who listens to adoptive parents. She uplifts, or listens to adoptees, excuse me, and she uplifts and is a good teacher for other adoptive parents. So whether or not you as the adoptee can handle her, that's fine if you can't. And that was how I led the book too, is if you can't read the adoptive parent section, that's okay. Don't force yourself if you're not there. That's not the intent, is to like push anybody into trauma. But anyway, we had one of those conversations of like, why is it so hard? And just, I think I cheekily said, we should write a book together. And we said we need a birth parent, and we just let it at that. It just sat there for a little while. And then we ended up being online at a conference. It was during the pandemic, so everything was online. And Kelsey, our birth parent co-author, was speaking at a conference, and Lori and I were chatting each other right away. She was amazing. She knows modern adoption. She is familiar with legal issues and what the landscape is like in today's situations of adoption and placement. And so I think Kelsey's our person. We reached out to her and she said yes. It's like that was it. We didn't know if she was a good writer. It turns out she's an excellent writer. She didn't know who we were. We really didn't, Lori and I didn't really know each other that either. That had been our first phone call when I hadn't checked in on her. We lucked out. Like I said, it's really hard to write a book, for one thing. And then even harder, I think, to co-write a book, because you have to come together and bounce things off of each other. And so we just lucked out into this configuration where we really respect each other, and we were willing to listen to each other. And over the course of, flash forward, it took 3.5 years working together to bring the book to the market. And over that time, we just developed a really close friendship too, where a lot of it's not just the working project, but there's a lot of just friendship at play as well.
Wow. I'm glad you all became friends throughout this 3 years of that journey. Oh my goodness. What were some of the challenges you bumped up against?
I think right off the bat, one of the challenges when we started the writing, because a lot of the process was figuring out what are we going to write and putting the book proposal together and outlining and getting the publisher lined up and everything. And then you've got the deadline and you've got to write, and we start writing. And one of the issues that we had was that we knew we each had a section, and we just started writing our sections and not realizing that we were in a silo. Here we were, like, the whole intent is to come together, but then we were like, I'm going to do my chapters and you do yours. And then what kind of forced us to realize this is Lori is if something's on her plate, she'll just go get it done. Whereas I am definitely more of a deadline driven writer. So if I've got a deadline on Friday, I'm going to get it written Friday. Like, it won't be Monday. And so she's putting her chapters together, but she's writing chapters of things that I knew in my head. Like, I do a lot of drafting while I'm walking, while I'm showering. Like, I'm writing in my head for a long time before anything even gets put on paper. So I already knew things that were going to be put down, but then I'm like reading some of Lori's chapters and I'm like, oh wait, I'm going to cover this. And she was writing some stuff about attachment. I'm like, all my chapters are about attachment. But you don't know that yet because I haven't written them. And then so it wasn't fair to Lori. She needed, and so that was, for me, the big wake up is, okay, I need to get my act together here, because I can't just wait till the deadline. we need time to bounce our chapters off of each other. She needs to read mine. I need to read hers. We've got to go around, and also with Kelsey's as well. And we had to bounce these back and forth. It wasn't just, okay, the deadline that happens to be February, and on February 1st, you're going to get your chapters done. So we had to backtrack the timeline quite a bit and figure out how we were going to work together. And so we did. That was just one initial hiccup, and a funny experience too.
It's amazing what you pulled off. Gretchen Sisson makes a cameo in the book, and I'm speaking with her tomorrow, and I'm so excited to talk to her. This season, I'm taking a slight departure from just adoptees in the sense of those who are in the adoption realm, who are thought leaders, scholars like Gretchen, whose book Relinquish is just rocking me right now. Have you read it?
I haven't read it yet. Yeah, but I know I've heard such good things about it. Yes.
It is. It's really extraordinary as well. And she goes into just the political history of adoption, which is absolutely necessary. And just like with your book, you have birth family's perspective. And with hers, it's just completely laden with birth mothers' perspectives. And I think as an adoptee, still on my healing journey that will never end, that it's essential for us to read those stories. I've found that, like, just reading the anguish, to be honest, the anguish of the birth mothers and their stories really helps me understand my situation.
I have definitely found that to be the case. I'm so thankful for my relationship with Kelsey and other birth moms that I know and that I happen to be in community with. It's definitely a gift, and especially when they're doing their work and they're able to put into words what the loss has been for them. There's something that's really healing for me as well. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Are you reunified with your biological family? What's your backstory there?
Yeah, I'm in reunion with my birth mom, and I have been for a long time now. So it's been like 12 years that we've been in reunion. And so it's shaken out where it's just the normal. It's no longer the shiny new reunion phase, the honeymoon reunion phase. It's just the normal. I feel that I've integrated that experience for myself of who I come from and where I come from and the story. I don't know if you remember from the memoir, but it was a coerced adoption and private gray market. And so the recent article that Gabrielle Glazer just had come out a week and a half ago, I don't know if you saw that yet in the cut.
No, I haven't.
It's behind a paywall right now, but I will see if I can get you a link. It's back all behind the paywall, but she did a really fantastic job researching and telling the stories of two birth parents in particular in a modern day adoption, and going through a lot of she specifically was focusing on Utah and the cross-state practices. And within 3 days, one woman was flown overnight, within her first Google search, overnight, she's flown over to Utah for placement of her baby. And Utah has a period where they can't change their mind. Birth parents can't change their mind. So agencies in the private adoption sector work there. It's a state where it's easy to make adoptions happen, and open adoptions aren't enforced, and all kinds of legal issues that I'm really thankful for Gabrielle's work in exposing. And Kelsey and Ashley Mitchell had a big role in that. They've been founding Utah Adoption Rights and doing a lot of work to help support these women. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because it was very difficult to read it, because it's the modern day tale of exactly what happened to my birth mom, this coercion and these people thinking they know better. I sent it to my birth mom. We had some dialogue over texting of it's just the same old people thinking they know better about what to do with women's babies. And so there's a part of it that's really healing, and there's a part that's really sad. And it's, for me, what was really sad is, okay, so why are we still talking about this? Why is this still happening? And of course, I know you're an international adoptee. International adoptions is the same landscape. And when I frequently speak about that, when you look at the history of adoption, there's the corruption that consistently is the thread, and the coercion, and why are we still having these conversations? Why? And I think just continuing to press on and get the mainstream to be aware is what's needed. So I do definitely appreciate Gabrielle's work and Gretchen's work, because I think they're doing a really great job at reaching mainstream, and we need that.
I think so too. I think we definitely need that. And oddly enough, and ironically, I think the adoptees are the white knight in this scenario, that the reason why we haven't really gained any ground in the corruption and the misinformation that happens in the industry is because the adoptees had been silenced up until a few decades ago. And so it's exciting to see that this shift is happening with your book and with other adoptee voices that are loud and proud and unapologetically courageous out there, for these industries to see that the dominant narrative is incomplete and false all around. Yeah. So it's exciting times, because now we're creating opportunities and platforms and resources for people to no longer have the excuse of, oh, I didn't know better.
Now, I will tell you what the new excuse is, that it's not even that new. It's been around for a while, but I'm hearing it a lot as an undercurrent is, oh, things are different now. People, this is like I feel like every time I'm presenting to a group of particularly prospective adoptive parents, there's always one saying, people adopt for different reasons now. And so this doesn't really apply. So, and it's, oh, come on. And that's really why I tried so hard. Another reason I tried so hard to have so many adoptive voices with a lot of variety in our stories, because it's like, attachment is attachment. Adoption is an attachment wound, and it creates more attachment wounds when we don't know what we're dealing with, to all the separation that's just inherent in adoption. And so I don't know, there's always going to be, I think I'm very proud of the work adoptees, all of us, have done, raising our voices and telling different stories, changing the narratives. I am 100% feel like we are making some major headway, and it feels really good. And we still have work to do, because modern day adoption is still riddled with so much corruption and coercion and unethical practices. And you still have people thinking things have changed now, and it's all different. And so we still have work cut out for us.
Yeah, we have a lot of work cut out for us. So after all of this work that you've already done, is there anything that you have learned that you wish you had included in this book, in Unfiltered?
No, I don't think so. I feel really, like it's said, I feel really happy with how it's been said. I don't think so. I think what was challenging, at some point you can't include everything. And so that was certainly challenging, but we went over our word count. We had a lot to say, and we said a lot of it. I don't think there's things I learned. I think could there be a sequel? Maybe, but I feel like it's in here, and it wasn't meant to be exhaustive of every potential thing, but it was meant to be the way I framed my pieces is my chapters. And I'll just say that the book, for anyone who isn't familiar, is broken into four sections, but the adoptee section, Adoptees Unfiltered, Birth Parents Unfiltered, Adoptive Parents Unfiltered, and then the final section for the kind of the what now, the how we need to evolve and how to support adoptees who are adopted now, and how to support their maturation, and then a word to adoptees. And so with my chapters, really the best way I knew how with my studies of attachment and brain science was to just focus on attachment, on the separation. And so the emotional responses and the emotional issues at hand, and then also the systemic issues with adoption. So the religious component and the classism and racism that are inherent in adoption. And those, I would still stand by that. Those are the areas I would still write about for this book. When you're trying to pick what are the important things, it's the systemic and the emotional pieces. Yeah.
What's next for you?
What's next? I've got a few different things in the hopper. I'm really excited about a new novel that I started. I can't talk about it. It's at the like kind of just still getting the ideas out, but I'm super excited about that. Adoptee Voices is very near and dear to my heart. So we've got some kind of fun things planned for Adoptee Voices in the next year or so. And just some other different things I've got cooking.
Okay, look at you
Yeah.
being busy. That's awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about those things when you're ready to share and launch them and put them out in the world. I know they'll be extraordinary. But this has been a lovely conversation catching up with you. And please keep me in the loop as to what's next. And we will continue to find ways to collaborate and have this crossover, cross-pollination that we've got going.
Thank you, Lenise. Thanks so much for having me back.